Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sustainability Live. I'm Mark Westwind. Thank you all for joining us. We've got a really interesting program tonight and a great lineup of guests. So let me begin by asking you, are you still fracking your eggs in the morning? Do you enjoy a good fracking hot shower in the morning? Or do you heat your home or office with one of those big old fracking furnaces? Yes? Well, it's time to stop fracking around. All right, well, I'm sure you're aware that our dependence on natural gas is serious. From heating our home and workspaces, heating our water, cooking, we're dependent on natural gas in a big way, and it's having a serious effect on our climate. So now imagine what it would be like without natural gas. Take a second, okay? If activists and some elected officials have their way, use of natural gas would be phased out as quickly as possible through public policies like the City of Berkeley's recent ban on new natural gas hookups and personal actions such as replacing gas-powered appliances with electrical alternatives. For our discussion today, we want to take a look at the topic of building decarbonization, a critical part of our overall climate action strategy. We'll be looking at affordable ways that you and I can de-frack our houses and living space by going all electric. First, let's take a big picture look at the state of our renewable energy sources and uses in Contra Costa County with Mariella Herrick of MCE and Darren Defner from PG&E. Then we'll take a deep dive into affordable ways that we can go all electric with our space heating, water heating, and cooking with Jim Gunshinen, freelance writer and sustainability advocate, and Arlen Roberts with BPP, Building Performance Professionals, a home efficiency contracting company. Later in our sustainability tip of the month, Keen and I are going to demonstrate our induction cooking stoves, and that'll be kind of fun because we'll boil some water and show off our new appliances. As usual, we invite you to make comments in the chat or ask us questions during the show. We'll be opening up the audio between each segment to interact with everybody. So this is intended to be an interactive show. So let me begin by posing the question, if we all went electric, could our electrical infrastructure in Contra Costa handle that? Okay, so let's begin with Mariella Herrick from MCE. Mariella is a new addition to MCE and our local community choice aggregation company. Please introduce yourself and your colleagues. You've got a couple of colleagues with you tonight. And I think you're muted, Mariella. And tell us about MCE's efforts to turn our county deep green.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. So hi, everyone. My name is Mariella Herrick. I'm your Community Development Manager for MCE in Contra Costa County. And I believe MCE has quite a few faces on. Martin Bond is on the call. I saw Jenna was on the call, and I'm pretty sure I saw Justin also come in. Would you all like to introduce yourself? Here.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for letting us participate today.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here as well.
Hey, Jenna. Thanks for joining us.
So we're going to go ahead and get started. And just today, what we're hoping to do is tell you a little bit about MCE, talk to you about what a CCA is, and then break down your service options with MCE and give you a detailed overview on MCE Deep Green. And I'm sorry, my slides are not working. Pardon me while I fix this. Can you all see my slides? Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Sure.
So MCE, as a reminder, is a not-for-profit electricity provider that gives all of our electric customers the choice of having either 60% or 100% renewable energy supplied from clean, renewable sources. Our mission is to address climate change by reducing energy-related greenhouse gas emissions with renewable energy at cost-competitive rates while offering economic and workforce benefits in order to create more equitable communities. So what is a community choice? MCE is what's known as Community Choice Aggregation Program, or CCA for short. CCAs are programs that allow local governments to buy power on behalf of their residents, businesses, and municipal accounts as an alternative supplier instead of just buying from investor-owned utility companies. So how does that happen? CCAs were made possible in California through state legislation in 2002. What it changes for customers is your choices in electric generation options. Because of CCAs, you can now choose to join an agency like MCE to replace your electric generation. Before you just had one choice, which was PG&E, but now you have options. PG&E still maintains the pipes and wires, and I'll go over kind of how the split in service works. But ultimately, I just want to remind everyone that MCE is a local not-for-profit public agency. And so what we're starting to see is over the last 10 years since CCAs came into play, we're seeing a huge movement towards the CCA model. When we first started, we were the first, and now there are over 28 across the state offering service to over 10 million customers statewide. And so when you receive your bill from PG&E, all electric customers have a charge, which is electric generation and delivery. So MCE, as your CCA, takes over PG&E's electric generation for customers, supplying more energy from clean and renewable resources, and then PG&E continues to deliver that electricity. So you're still a PG&E customer in that way, because they're bringing energy from the grid to your home, business, or any kind of address that you're using. And then they maintain the wires and send you your bill, which will include MCE's generation charge. So the end result is means that you get the same electric service you had, but now you have more options. So now that you know a little bit about CCAs, I'm going to talk about the community. I'm going to talk about who is MCE. So MCE was formed in 2008, and we launched service in 2010. We have 480,000 customer accounts, and we're serving 36 member communities in Marin County, Solano County, Napa County, and Contra Costa County. And so with MCE, you now have a choice in your generation and where it comes from. Our default service is MCE Light Green, which offers 60% renewable energy. And then customers have the option to opt up to 100% renewable energy, which we call Deep Green, for about a penny more per kilowatt hour. A question we often get is related to our electricity content. So if you take a moment to look at your screen, looking at our light green content, you can see the renewable energy that makes up the 60% of our renewable energy for our default option. And then if you take a look at the right-hand side of your screen, you can see what makes up our deep green, which is California solar and wind. So why MCE Deep Green? Choosing an electric service is not an insignificant decision. In fact, collectively, when you consider the collective effect, of each of our individual decisions, it makes a tremendous difference. MCE customers together are eliminating over 340,000 metric tons of pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. And that would be approximately 73,000 cars removed from the road in an entire year. So one of the easiest ways to reduce your carbon footprint and take action is by opting up to Deep Green. So opting up to Deep Green is simple. It's installation free, which is really important during the times that we're in right now. For the average household, it's about $5 more. It reduces your carbon footprint to zero, and it keeps your dollars within the local community. So half a penny of that cost associated to Deep Green is reinvested in our local projects. And so I'll give you all an example of that. As a reminder, Deep Green is 50% solar, 50% local wind. And so let's talk about who's participating in Deep Green. If you take a moment to look at the chart on your screen, you can see that in Contra Costa, El Cerrito, and the city of Lafayette are really leading our Deep Green enrollment. And that's as a result of a lot of local organizing organizations like Sustainable Contra Costa and grassroots movements that have really kind of built up a groundswell from our local communities to opt up. We also have our Deep Green champions, who are local businesses who have decided to opt up into Deep Green. One benefit that we offer our Deep Greens champions is that we have a place on our website where we are promoting their business. And so let's talk about the local impact of Deep Green. So on the screen, you can see 3 different examples of how MCE reinvests back into our community. So because of time, I'm only going to highlight our EV programs, but happy to talk about the other 2 at another time. So one way that we reinvest back in our communities is through local rebates. And so we have 2 through our electric vehicle programs. One is provided by eligible households are able to get a rebate to purchase an electric vehicle. The other option that we have is electric vehicle charging, because we know that charging is a critical component for the adoption of electric vehicles. And so we work with local businesses and we work with local public agencies to install charging in different sites across Contra Costa. And our rebate is a way that we are putting the local dollar back in our communities. The other thing that we're doing is that we now require new projects that have ground growth to be pollinator friendly, so that we can incorporate different ways of greening up our communities. This allows for really a holistic approach to talking about energy by supporting the biodiversity through our pollinator program. And then we incentivize building local renewable energy projects in our communities through our feed and tariff program and our competitive power purchase agreement. Today, MCE has a total of 31 megawatt in our service area, as well as 11 of these projects are in the pipeline and 20 are operational and delivering power now. And then ultimately, like I said earlier, MCE's collective power is super important. So we know that we're eliminating over 340 metric tons of greenhouse gases. As MCE and as our MCE customers, collectively, we've saved over $6 million and we've committed to reinvesting back locally. So opting up, reducing your carbon footprint is easy. It's 4 steps. You go to MCE Opt Up, you fill in your name, email address, and phone number, and you tap an authorization box, and then you're good to go. So that is all that I have for you all today with this time. Thank you so much, and we'd be happy to take questions.
A quick question, if I can.
You're muted, Mark.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
I have solar already. PG&E buys that back. How does that work with MCE? Where'd she go?
Hello, sorry.
Oh, there she is.
Jenna, would you like to take that question? We do have a NEM program, a net energy metering program, and I think Jenna can share a little bit more about that.
I think what was being asked, and I was literally going to ask the same question. I've got a solar system on my house. I'm pumping electrons back up into the system. Do you consider that part of your source of renewable energy? Do you know that? Or does that go directly into PG&E's distribution system?
It goes into PG&E, and I pay for it every single month. So it's quite a hefty bill. So definitely want to cover my cost on that one. The solar I'm talking about now. And then PG&E, of course, buys it back. And then at the end of the year, they do a true up where they charge me for all the electricity above and beyond that I use.
Right.
And
But again, MCE isn't getting credit, isn't considering us to be local generating sources, right? It's going through PG&E.
And right now I'm going through PG&E, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's correct, Mark. But I just wanted to make a clarifying point that the electricity generation, because it's on the MCE side, MCE credits you for that generation and
Yes,
PG&E
yes.
credits you for the distribution. But in terms of actually like accounting for that power, whose portfolio does it get accounted towards? It actually doesn't get accounted towards anybody's portfolio. So that's one of the things. I don't know if folks have heard about, blockchain. It's, associated most often with cryptocurrency, but that's actually one of the things the larger energy industry nationally is looking at is there a way to use that type of technology to track these much smaller solar generation capacity from individual residences and make it so that it is something that can be incorporated into a utility portfolio. But right now there's no way to account for that.
Cool. And then, follow-up question in line with that is that, in effect, a lot of people aren't in a position to install local solar, on their residence, whether it's an apartment building or a duplex or something like that. I mean, is it legitimate to consider that if I wanted to be, carbon zero, going deep green would accomplish the same thing without having to invest in a solar system, correct?
Are you talking to me or to her?
I'm talking to MCE.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Mariella.
Or if you want to chime in, either one, but or anybody, but Mariella?
Yeah, so yes, if you purchase Deep Green, it allows MCE to buy energy for your house that will be 100% local solar and wind, which will be able to be counted towards reducing kind of greenhouse gas. So it's a zero carbon footprint.
Right. So in effect, in my case, I've got solar, but I'm also 100% deep green MCE customer because I'm drawing from the grid in the evenings. I'm generating it back in the day, but I also want that energy coming in to be 100% renewable. So it's a two-part strategy.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, good,
And
good.
I would just like to add, my name is Martin and I work with many local businesses in the area. And for a local business that chooses to go deep green, that is California Energy Commission certified 100% renewable energy. And so it does qualify for scope 2 emissions, which can be credited on their sustainability goals as well.
Cool. Well, one of the most fascinating charts that you showed, Mariella, is that the adoption chart. And we at Sustainable Contra Costa are interested in more people going 100% renewable. And it struck me El Cerrito is far and away more engaged, but overall that deep green percentage is very small, particularly given that you quoted $5 extra a month, a penny a kilowatt, something like that. That's pocket change to many of us, and Danville's a low percentage and so forth. So the question is, and this is to the whole MCE team, why is that? And I know we're promoting it, but what are the sources of resistance other than money, where in most cases it's not significant? What would it take to get us to a really high level, 70, 80% deep green? And then the second follow-up question is, if everybody switched tomorrow, do you have enough renewable power to provide that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we do a lot to try to promote deep green as an option for people. At the end of the day, what we want is for people to have choices and to do the best thing for themselves. And so I think El Cerrito and the city of Lafayette are leading in Contra Costa the deep green, because they've had a lot of deep green strategies, grassroots movements led by local leaders like Sustainable Contra Costa, other organizations. So El Cerrito had the 100 by 100 campaign, where they wanted to get 100 households enrolled into deep green to celebrate the city. The city of Lafayette has also embarked previously in a grassroots campaign for the which I believe was called 50 by 50, where Sustainable Lafayette really led and worked with MCE and other community organizers to try to get more households to sign up for Deep Green. And so the power really comes from community leaders. I think we're always excited to attend events and let people know what their options are with MCE, but where we see kind of the greatest success and long-term success is when it's neighbors telling neighbors, where it's business organizations telling other business organizations, and sharing that it's easy to opt up to Deep Green, and that it's a simple task that can really reduce the carbon footprint of a business or a home. And so that's kind of why we're seeing that. And so, you know, we work with cities. We have a local kind of banner campaign where we can bring banners to a city and just kind of have them up that are saying, you know, opt up to Deep Green. We can do presentations like this. We also have a Deep Green advocate toolkit online that I'd be happy to share with you all, that has ready to go information that that can be used to get people excited to opt up to Deep Green.
Cool. So let me, that follow-up question. Oh, the follow-up question about what's that?
You had a further question, Mark, that if everybody in the service area opted up to Deep Green, would we have enough energy?
Yeah, I was just about to follow up on that. Yes.
And we're really hoping we have to solve that problem. One press release that we announced today was that MCE completed 160 megawatts of new solar power, enough to serve 65,000 homes, called the Little Bear Solar Complex. We're actively looking to install more and more solar, both in our service area and in California, and we're often pairing that with storage to really manage the grid impacts. So we do have a lot of ongoing efforts to build more capacity. We would not be able to meet all the capacity in Contra Costa County, but again, that's a great problem for us to take on, and we are looking forward to getting as many businesses and residents involved in Deep Green to meet that challenge and that opportunity to make a bigger impact on our climate.
Well, I think that's something that we should talk about within Sustainable Contra Costa. I want to add one last question, then I want to move on to getting PG&E's perspective from Darren Defner. Someone in the chat, Melanie Henry, asked, do you have future plans to expand into Alameda County? And I think I know the answer, but I'll let you guys answer that.
Justin, go ahead.
No, Jenna answered it in the chat.
Well, I mean, just overtly. You know,
there's 23 CCAs in California serving all different communities. Our partners, East Bay Community Energy, serves Alameda County. In Alameda County, there's also Sonoma Clean Power, San Francisco Clean Power. So there's a lot of great CCAs following MCE's footsteps to bring community choice and community benefits to their counties.
Cool, thank you.
I had a quick question.
Tina, go ahead.
And I love how MCE, by the way, I'm Tina Newhasel, president and co-founder of Sustainable Contra Costa. I love how MCE is so open and works in partnership with all these organizations. And, you know, we're all in it together, and MCE's always had that attitude, and I love that. But there's a myth out there that I've run across a lot, and people think that if they have solar, they can't get them, they have to opt out. I know, like in Walnut Creek, and I think a lot of the cities that adopted MCE made it an opt-out situation. So you automatically went to MCE unless you chose to opt out. Some people opted out because their solar provider, at least I heard this in one case, told them, oh, you can't have MCE if you're going to have solar. So that is a myth. I just wanted to put that out there. And I have solar, and I do get a bill every month, just like you would get through PG&E. It's the same thing, and a true up at the end of the year. So I'm just putting that out there to kind of bust that myth. I don't know if you have any other.
Yeah, I must say, getting a $321 check every year from MCE as a rebate on my solar is welcome.
Really?
So continuing the discussion, we invited Darren Defner, who is a member of the Sustainable Contra Costa Board of Directors and has an affiliation with PG&E. And Darren, what's your perspective on the general renewable energy situation in Contra Costa County?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Pleasure to join everyone. As Mark mentioned, I do work at PG&E. I've worked on a couple of different clean energy teams. So I was excited to join tonight just to be able to share perspective, address the question that you just asked, Mark, as well as any other questions, and just get in. Really, more than anything, kind of my hat as member of the Sustainable Contra Costa's board. I'm just excited to have this conversation in 2021, where we can talk about de-fracking our homes. California is such a leader in this. We now have a president who's issuing executive orders, and hopefully maybe we can get legislation that can really make a change at the national level. I'm excited about all this. So happy to join you. The opportunities in Contra Costa, as well as the entire state, really are tremendous. So I'll share my screen. I don't have slides. When I was thinking about this event tonight, I thought, if all of us, if we haven't already put solar on our roofs or done whatever we can, like, what's something actionable? And it may not be the most exciting thing to share on a screen, but I thought I would go to PG&E's website for those of you who still have PG&E as a service provider. As you heard, communities are choosing to join a CCA. PG&E still, delivers the service through the pipes and wires, and individuals who have opted out also maintain PG&E. So I at least wanted to share some of the options that individuals can take, and hopefully there's something that you haven't done that you might be interested in taking. So all right, let's see if this works. Can you?
There you go.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. So if you go to PG&E's website, you see all of these main bars here, and I'm not going to go through everything. I'm not going to try to get too far into the weeds, but primarily I wanted to just highlight a couple of things that are under this Save Energy and Money title and the Solar and Vehicles title, because obviously it relates to everything that we're talking about tonight. To begin with, and I know MCE provided a very similar chart in terms of the overall portfolio of resources that make up electricity delivery. This came from a year prior to the chart that I saw from MCE. And what I really just wanted to highlight is, we have very clean resources, right? This comes from 2018. And in that year, 85% of PG&E's delivery was greenhouse gas free. Now, the renewables portion, in terms of what's considered eligible renewables, was lower, and in that year it was 39%. But if you see the entire makeup of the generation that was delivered, you still see the 15% in 2018 that was from natural gas. And that's kind of, when we think of any of these actions that you can take at your house, it's not just the gas stove, it's not just the gas heater that is kind of an appliance question, whether you swap it out for an electrified version. It's also the percent of the electricity that's being delivered to your home. And so what I've always advised anyone is, there's a whole section on energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is kind of the non-sexy way of making a difference. It's usually the most cost-effective and immediate way you can begin to de-frack your home, because if you're using less electricity in the first place, by definition, you're going to be shaving off any of the electricity that came from fossil fuel sources, in natural gas specifically. So if you haven't done this, every PG&E customer can go online. You can get a home energy report that's specifically for your house, and then it provides you advice on things that you might want to do to become more energy efficient. Also on the website is a section that talks about different rebates that are available for energy efficiency. And you can see some of the different categories here, but this marketplace here talks about current rebates. So I'm clicking between tabs, but if you literally click the link, you would get to what I'm showing you. And it will show you the different products that you might want to invest in if, again, let's say you wanted to electrify your house and you need a new appliance that will take out your gas appliance and put in a new energy efficient electric version. So you see,
I don't see Tesla Model X on there.
It is not on this list here.
Oh, it's on another tab. Okay, I'll look for it.
But in terms of clean energy itself, and you heard MCE talk about the programs that they have. Obviously, if you own your home, if you have control over your roof, in a sense, you can decide whether or not putting solar panels on your roof makes sense, and that's kind of the private solar choice. PG&E has this website that allows you to first start with an estimate. There's a solar calculator. It gives you a really good idea of what it might cost. There's a great checklist and kind of steps to take to make sure that you understand what you're considering, financing options, incentives, and it ultimately, is it right for you? Now, that's only about 50% of PG&E customers are those that can actually put solar panels on their roof. For those that can't, there's these community renewable programs, and specifically, we have a program called Solar Choice. In this one, it's similar to the deep green option that you heard, with some differences. And the website will, explains exactly what PG&E's program is. But in short, you can choose 50 to 100% solar to meet your energy needs. Myself, at my house, I've signed up for 100% Solar Choice so that I can have 100% solar for my house. It's not the rooftop solar option, it's through this community version. And I'll just end with saying, the more that we can do in terms of decarbonizing our house, obviously includes the biggest chunk, which is not just the energy use at your house, but it's what we drive, right? If we can electrify everything, you see how the grid itself is getting cleaner. If you sign up for, a program that's 100% renewables, you're doing your part with that. But if we're now powering our cars and eliminating gasoline through the transportation sector, that has its own huge impact on greenhouse gases. And so PG&E also has the section here that talks about, getting an estimate of costs, the incentives and everything that can help make that a reality. And lastly, the team I'm on is an energy storage team. And we also have, battery storage, which I am having a hard time clicking on because this is in the way. There we go.
I'm collecting AA batteries downstairs and putting them together gradually. So I'm building my own storage unit.
Well, if you don't want to do Mark's route, you can check out the different incentives that can potentially pair solar plus storage, so that you have kind of the resilience option that you obviously reduce greenhouse gases for your house. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and happy to answer any questions now or at the end of the show.
Mark,
Yeah,
you're always on the cutting edge, Mark. You're always on the cutting edge. I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So you pointed, I think you were pointing to, my screen's really tiny. I think you were pointing to some of the rebates available through PG&E, is that right? Do you know if those are different than the Bay Run rebates? Because we're going to talk about some of those in a little bit, or if they're overlapping or.
Short answer is that there are additional rebates. Different programs cover different types of either customer base or the type of appliance that you're using, or if that program itself has a specific focus. There are a collection of rebates, and so it's not just duplicating things.
Okay, that's great to know. So if we're looking at, a certain amount of rebates available through the Bay Run program, we should also be doing our homework and looking to see what PG&E is offering. And I think it's somewhat similar with the MCE. So anyway, that just helps to understand where they're coming from.
Well, thank you to the MCE team. Thank you to Darren for joining us. And Mariella will be with us through the rest of the show to answer any follow-up questions anybody has, and so will Darren. But let's turn to Jim Benjamin, who is a freelance writer and a sustainability advocate. And Jim, what's your take on the public adoption of electric appliances, the whole field of building decarbonization, incentives and so forth? Are we making any progress?
We are, but I think for most people, it comes in stages, and you have to start with low-hanging fruit, what's easy, and eventually, if you stick with it and you have the resources and the help, and then you can go all the way to zero carbon. But there's some intermediate steps. For most of us living in a home that's more than 10 years old, and maybe was built to different energy standards, it might be good to have someone from PG&E or BayREN, come out and do an energy audit, where they would do some tests, figure out, okay, your ducts are leaky, or gosh, you should be using LED bulbs and it's not these incandescents anymore. And basically, they'll kind of give you a menu and a list of things that you can choose from. And it's not always going to be, new windows. Someday maybe, but I think it's the way that most people do it. Is they're going to go little by little. I'm going to use the example of my own house. I know everything I do about home energy efficiency and indoor air quality and safety and affordability because I work with writers who are in the field doing that kind of work. And I help them communicate their passions and their wisdom to other contractors, other professionals. But I learned a lot from just working on my own house. First, when we just moved in, I think it was a year later, we invited someone, Advanced Home Energy, or Exclude. They're not in business anymore, unfortunately, but they did an energy audit of our house. They did a blower door to see how leaky the building envelope was. A duct blaster test to test how leaky our duct system was. And what we came up with together was, okay, they were going to seal our ducts. They were going to put insulation in the attic, and we were going to swap out our CFLs actually for LEDs. And because we had just moved into the house, we don't know what the former owners, how much energy they used. So what we did was we went to the PG&E site, and you can look in I think I click on Darren, the My Energy or My Energy Use. Anyway, you can kind of compare your energy use to your neighbors or people in similar homes. So we went there and we found out that we were doing pretty good. We could do better with gas, but we were doing pretty good with the electricity. And I think a lot of that had to do with LED lights. A lot of the energy efficiency improvements also happened because we had our can lights, the lights that are in the ceiling, kind of poking up into the attic. Well, often there are places where you just have air leaking constantly. So we had them insulated, and then we put in LEDs. LEDs don't heat up the way that incandescents do. So it's really dangerous sometimes. If you insulate an incandescent can light, hopefully if you have a safety switch, it'll cut off before it gets too hot. But it could get too hot and you'd have a lot of problems. So one thing that the authors that I work with talked about was every house is different. So it always depends. So the second retrofit that my wife Michelle and I did was we worked with Stewart Heating and Air, and I think they were involved in what's now called BayREN. Used to be Energy Upgrade California. And they did a little bit more duct sealing, although we were pretty good that way. But we found out that the house, one wall of the house had insulation. We didn't know that. And then I think 3 sides didn't, which was something we discovered after they did their retrofit. And we saw the holes in the outside of the house where they injected cellulose insulation. Anyway, so we had, half to 2/3 of the house insulated. And that's really kind of the extent of it. And we were able to compare the energy we used before the retrofit, the year before the retrofit, to the energy we use after the retrofit. And we saved about 10% on our heating bill. And, you know, it's not bad. It's what we were kind of going for because, again, you know, we use a little bit too much natural gas. But there's lots of ways to get to zero carbon. A lot of people go for like home performance with Energy Star, which is a program for existing homes that certifies they meet certain standards of efficiency and health and indoor air quality. There's things like Energy Star Homes, which is for new homes. There's LEED for Homes, which is for new homes or existing homes. With a new home, you can design it to have all the features that you want. You can put the water heater right next to where all the water uses are, so you don't have waste energy getting the water from the heater to your shower. But you know, you can design in walls where there's room for lots of insulation. You can put in double, triple pane windows with low E coatings and do all that. But most of us, you know, we're kind of living in a house that somebody had built a long time ago. But you can come in another kind of intermediate step would be to go for a net zero energy home. That means that you produce as much electricity over time as you use. You're still connected to the grid. The first step is still to try to make your house as efficient as possible. Then go get some, you know, either from MCE or put solar panels on your house. And between the solar panels and your efficiency, you're able to basically meet all your efficiency needs, energy needs over the course of a year. You could go, you know, I guess you call it deep green for certification program, but you could go passive house is an international standard started in Germany. And we used to call passive houses beer coolers with cutouts for windows, but they're not like that at all. They're just very well insulated and they have very little leakage, and they have energy recovery ventilators that give you good ventilation, bring in fresh air, but allow you not to lose all your energy out the, you know, when you bring in the fresh air and you exhaust the stale air.
So why, let me ask you this, why wouldn't your average homeowner in particularly a wealthier area like Danville or Lafayette or Walnut Creek, you know, perhaps their bills are such that they can just go ahead and absorb the cost of electricity and gas. But what would be what if, from you, in your opinion, why would people not be more proactive about moving forward with this? I mean, political considerations, economic considerations, hassle factor considerations.
Yeah.
You know, why are we where we are, where more people aren't jumping on this and or going to deep green from your perspective?
Part of it's political. You know, in the last 4 years, energy efficiency has been, you know, described as a communist plot, you know. So it's not, obviously, but and that's just part of it. You know, there was a contractor, a really well-known contractor in Canada, and he worked on homes for probably 30 years before he died. And he said that his best sales force were thousands of horseflies that would infest houses in the fall or in the spring. And so people would call him and it's like, you were driving us, these flies are driving us crazy, you got to come and fix our house. So they would go, they would do a checkup, they would see where the leaks are, you know, where the flies are getting in. And then it would say, okay, here's the fly problem solved. We're going to seal up all these leaks. And while we're in there, why don't we put some insulation in your wall? And so that's, you kind of get people where their pain spots are.
We don't have horse flies in Contra Costa County quite.
We probably have a fly equivalent, something.
But do you have a sense, you know, from surveys or just talking to contractors or so forth to I mean, in this area, you know, what it would take to motivate more homeowners to invest in this? Are incentives enough to motivate people? Because it looks like PG&E and MCE and you know, Bayren offer plenty of incentives, but you know, we should be running out of, you know, the money to fund incentives. People should be filling them up quickly, you know. So
yeah.
What's your take on that?
You know, that's a really good question, and it's you know, there's no clear direct answer right now, but because you have to get people over the hump.
Right.
It means spending the money having some stranger come into your house and do an energy audit and go
Right.
through all your bedrooms and everything. And then when you decide to do, you pick the work that you want to have done, like air sealing and maybe insulate your walls. It's going to be messy. It's going to be disruptive. So I think it's kind of a big ask. The incentives really, really help.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to look at,
Yeah.
everything kind of below solar and below blowing in insulation and all those heavy duty things. That's why tonight we really wanted to think about and take a look at more on the appliance side, anything under like $5,000 and so forth.
Oh,
And
sure.
yeah, like your story, let me kind of shift gears here a little bit.
Okay.
Time-wise. So I'm a homeowner in Martinez, and for I've lived here for many years. My house is 1943 house, so it wasn't built to any energy efficiency standard. And I try to walk the walk in terms of sustainable lifestyle. So it's not necessarily cheap or easy. I can reinforcing what you said. So about 5 years ago, I put in solar and I replaced my old hot water heater with a tankless water heater. We'll get in that in a minute. And I also upgraded my heating system. I didn't have an air conditioner, so I put in an air conditioner and heating unit together. And I ran into a situation where a company offered a package deal, and so insulation and heating system. I said, okay, fine. I want an electric heater. I wanted to go all electric, cut down my natural gas. And guy came down, took a look at my split level downstairs, said, we'd have to redo all your ducts. And, there's not really enough space for the electric heater in this space.
Mhm.
And then, he was just he wasn't doing it intentionally, but he was just kind of describing the issues that I was going to deal with. And we were under a deadline for the contract. And I just said, all right, put in the gas one. And, I found myself in a position of not being informed. And I think of myself as trying to be pretty darn informed. And so I don't know anything about heat pumps at the time, and I still don't know a lot. And so for tonight's show, I wanted to invite someone who can tell us more about heat pumps and the electrical stuff that we can do in our house. And so I've invited Arlen Roberts from BPP, Building Performance Professionals, a local company. Great website, by the way, very committed to sustainability. So let's shift gears here and take a look at what we can do in terms of specific solutions and devices for our home upgrades. And Arlen, let me ask you about heat pumps.
Please. All right. So, well, heat pumps, a simple way of explanation about heat pumps. We're all familiar with air conditioning. We have air conditioners. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So we're all familiar with air conditioners. We hear them hum along all summer long out here in the Delta. Quite familiar, right? So heat pumps, often I get clients looking around the condenser. Where's the pump that pumps the heat? Really, all that name is an explanation for is that it's using the electricity to move heat from one place to another rather than generating it. So heat pumps are able to cool and heat by just simply reversing that refrigeration cycle.
Okay, so two questions.
Sure.
How does that heat or cooling get into my ducts? Okay, and second is, what's it take to install that? How deep do I have to go? I mean, how many miles down do we do? I heard something about digging. Tell me about that.
Okay, so there's several types of heat pumps. So
Okay.
if you're talking geothermal, then you do some digging for that and run what we call like hydronic loops through that. Not something we really have to worry about so much in California. We do like air to air transfer.
Okay.
And so how that works, we get not to be such a nerd about it, but it is a little bit of nerd. We do home performance. So that's physics, chemistry, thermodynamics. It's kind of what incorporates the building science. And so how we do that is we play with the temperature and the pressures of the gas or refrigerant. By raising it or lowering it mechanically, we're able to heat or cool your space.
So, okay, so just to get down to specifics, you're going to come to my house and put in a big square box. Does it go underneath, inside my house, or does it go outside my house?
So there's several applications. A lot of them are like for like with like the old style gas furnace that you're used to.
Okay.
It looks almost identical. except it's electrically powered. You'll have the same ductwork, a return air ductwork, and then your supply ductwork. And now how we facilitate the heating and cooling, again, is with the manipulating the pressures of either the fluids or the gas within your system, the refrigeration circuit, right?
So it's magic, and that's really all that counts. I don't really care how it works, but it's working off electricity, right?
Indeed, and I am here to try and demystify the magic for you. So, you know, allow me the chance if I'm able.
Go for it. Yeah. Okay. I mean, can I literally, unplug my gas heater and plug in an energy efficient heat pump, or do I need shape and size wise? Do they make them that are compatible in a sense?
So two things to think about when I hear that question, right? So we're talking about going from something that uses like a 110 voltage or 120 volts
Right.
To power that indoor cabinet. Now going to require a 240 volts to run a heat pump.
But that's just another wire. Okay.
Not a big deal. And so it's just a matter of making sure that your electrical panel can handle that, the sub or the main panel. But other than that, it's really the same refrigerant piping, the same ductwork. As far as retrofit, when we're talking new construction, we can get into like mini splits and ducted mini splits, which excites me, but maybe that's not why everyone's here today.
Well, I'm thinking, I'm my new gas heater is the same shape as my old gas heater. It's, tall, vertical, what is it, Lennox or Ream version of those, could I literally call you up and have that swapped out?
Absolutely. It's not something I would recommend, right? So something you hear a lot from traditional HVAC companies are rule of thumb measurements, right? Those are good for quick and dirty measurements, face to face. I'm in your house, you don't want me there all day for the estimate. It works for that, right? Rule of thumb are good. But when we're talking like installation, we want to make sure that we're using an ACA manual, which is American Contractors Association. The Air Conditioning Contractors Association, sorry.
Okay, all right.
We use their standards, guidelines, and principles. They guide us in everything that we do. They help us size properly your system. It's how we know one way when we work with the Bay Rent rebates that we're able to lessen the load on your electric system.
Cool.
And still
what are we talking about?
Comfort.
What are we talking about money wise?
Money wise, they are, an initial investment is a little more expensive than the gas. And we all know gas is cheaper to operate. But with the advent of induction motors and variable speed compressors, we've gone from the old piston fed, it looks like a weird capillary tube. It's like an old school. You still see them in some places. But for residential now, it's like within millimeters even, right? So they have an electronically controlled expansion valve, which, so when we're talking temperature and pressure, that's how we get the cold. It comes in hot, allows it to expand and cool down. Then we're able to make it cold in your house, reverse that process for heating, right?
But how much money? I mean, you gotta size it. We're talking about $2,000 to $10,000 or $10,000 to $20,000 or.
So you're looking at like 20 to 30 grand, probably for a traditional heat pump split system. Now we start talking mini split systems, like, so when you have, for instance, say like a tri-level house or split level house, it's half of it's got a crawl, half of it's a vaulted ceiling. Something we see a lot actually. It can be difficult to even seal your ductwork without some major involvement, right? And so a lot of times what you can do is you can replace or lessen the load with mini splits and cool direct in one spot. There's no ductwork, no conductive loss from the ductwork, and you're able to cool that space instead of the whole house.
You mean, what's a mini split? I thought that was a summer drink. Like,
right. So mini split is a heat pump, like your traditional heat pump system. Like
traditional. All these are brand new things, so there's no traditional, right? But
so we're thinking about like your regular gas-fired furnace, which has a refrigeration coil, the outside buddy humming away. Right. The traditional heat pump replaces that. It has a big condensing unit outside, big cabinet inside for
Oh,
the air handler.
is
Connects
that
to a
per
big
room?
system of, nope, that's traditional. It hooks up to your existing system of ductwork.
Oh, okay,
And so that's like why we call it traditional, right?
okay, okay.
Now when we're talking lessening the load, your office that you're sitting in, for instance, say it was over a garage, not insulated beneath you, right? Could
How did you
become
know?
really, could become really cold in there.
Literally, it
Is
does.
it literally? So one way to accomplish heating and cooling comfort is a mini split. It condenses that whole traditional system. So it sits on your wall there behind you.
Right.
It actually has a smaller outdoor unit.
Mhm.
They come as high as 42 SEER, which is a seasonal efficiency rating. Really efficient.
Okay.
California's minimum is 14. So it's like
Oh,
a lot
okay,
higher than that, right? And
great.
that's due to inverter technology and not having conductive losses through the ductwork.
I'll have to take a look at that.
I
So,
think I have one right here if you want me to show it at some
wait,
point.
right, exactly. We're going to turn to Tina. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tyler, can you see show my phone? Can you guys see there we go.
There you
Ah,
go.
there it
Yeah, now
is.
we're seeing it. Great.
Okay. So I think I didn't know. I've been so excited to find out what a heat pump is. Turns out I actually have one in my little
Yes,
office outside. I didn't know.
indeed.
Super, super efficient. It heats and cools like in an instant, and it gets pretty hot and pretty cold out here because it's not insulated, and it works really well, probably even better than I actually need it to. But it
Now,
wasn't not
Nice.
too expensive either.
Tina, does that have part of it going through the wall to the outside?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a little box on the other side of it on the outside of the building. And I'll turn it on so you can see how it works. It just sort of blows the air back and forth.
They're
as needed.
very quiet too.
Yeah.
Well,
And
and so let's
Yeah.
take a little side road here in terms of energy efficient space heaters. Okay, so we're all familiar with the plug-in, turn it on. You've got the glowing coils and little fan and so forth. There's a radiant heating kind with the big,
Works. I'm familiar.
elliptical thing, so forth. So I was looking into these from my office here above my cold garage. And I came across two new technologies. And Tyler, while I'm talking, can you cue up that photograph that I sent you? One is the infrared heaters that basically mount to the wall and they radiate infrared heat and heat up the objects in the room. What's your experience with those?
So when we're talking like space heaters, in my experience, a really high wattage. I'm not so familiar with the infrared.
Okay.
Because like I say, we kind of offer the mini split as that
Right.
low cost item. And what happens is in my experience, when you run like the space heaters, they're really high wattage. If you say like 1500 watts divided by 120 volts, you're looking at like over 12 amps or over 10 amps, right?
Yes. Yes.
Can maybe still, if you have something else on that circuit, maybe be a little high for that circuit if it's 15 amp circuit, right?
Right.
So
Right.
a lot of times when people tell me they have like space heaters that, like you were just mentioning, the traditional space heaters, we recommend dedicated circuits for that because it's kind of the safest way to run them.
Yeah.
Just like we do for a mini split, they have a dedicated circuit, but they actually heat and cool and do that without a conductive loss. So they're actually, as far as the infrared though, I'm sorry, I don't have a great answer.
Okay. Well, the one in the picture here, it's installed literally right there next to my desk. Inexpensive. I think it was under $150. It's literally a 110 plug-in.
Mhm.
It took me 10 minutes to mount with 4 screws, and it's a convection heater. It's apparently 93% efficient. And when I turn it on, it's got a built-in thermostat. I just literally turn it on and it just sits there. No fan, no coils, but the heat, however it heats it up, heat rises through the top and fills the room with air and gradually shifts the entire room to be a warm space. Now, Tyler, can you show that picture again? That heater is the one I described at its size, is dedicated to a room 10 by 10, maybe 10 by 12, something like that. So you'd in effect need to put one of those in different rooms. And yes, this does draw, I think it's 15 or 1800 watts of electricity. So that's a big draw. But I've got solar and I've got deep green, so I can waste energy, right? But
so it's all renewable.
Yeah, it's all renewable, right? Exactly. And so that was a decision. And so the point I am looking at is there are these inexpensive plug-in alternatives without putting in these other things. The decision, though, is that if you put it in and you're not getting your electricity from a renewable source, you're not necessarily accomplishing the mission, right? I mean, I've got solar in the daytime. I use this to kind of bridge into the evening. I've got deep green, so I'm kind of covered. So, and these infrared ones are really cool. They're the same kind of shape. The only difference is because they radiate out a fairly good heat pattern, you need to have a clearance of about 2 feet or more in front of it. And so in this case, this one doesn't have a clearance requirement. So I said, all right, I'm going to go with this. But if you had a living room or something where you've got a corner or a wall, you know, you can build them in. In fact, I've seen some that actually look like fireplaces.
Interesting.
You know, you get that look of a fireplace and it's radiating out heat, you know?
Yeah,
so
interesting.
Yeah, so let's shift gears here from space heating to electric water heating. Now, I know there's electric water heaters and then there's tankless water heaters. And I've got a tankless, I think Tina's got a tankless. What's your experience with tankless water heaters?
Well, I love heat pump water heaters.
What?
Those are a thing now.
Oh.
Indeed,
right.
they are. So we're all familiar with like traditional gas-fired furnaces. They even have really high efficient gas-fired or not furnaces, water heaters. Sorry.
Right. Right.
You see where my mind goes. But when we're talking water heaters, if we're just getting on efficiency, talking efficiency's sake, tankless water heaters are 50% more efficient than a standard. Yeah, there's no tank to keep heating.
Right.
So there's no loss there. So they work in that way. You're not heating it until you need it. So there's no loss of the water either, which is a planetary concern, right?
And that is a big thing because it's a lot faster on and you're not pumping all that cold water through until it gets warm. So,
right. And they could be made even more efficient with like recirculation loops or there's like on-site usage. So like there's a little device you can use that will funnel the water from the hot, you know, when you turn your hot tap on, it's gonna run, right? Well, you can feed that through to the cold side again, so it come back around to get heated. You're not actually wasting that water. Those are nifty too, and they go great with things like the on-demand water heaters or traditional because it helps you maybe not waste as much, right?
Cool.
Makes them even more efficient.
So do you find your customers are pleased when they shift over from natural gas to tankless?
For sure. So the electric tankless, they pay you back quicker as far with their savings and usage. In my experience, heat pump water heaters. So for instance, the only model that we use is the Ring Pro Terra model. It pay you back in 2 years when you install it from the savings. Even from a traditional gas furnace, if you get a really high efficient gas or not furnace, water heater, I keep doing that. When you have a really efficient gas water heater, the Pro Terra heat pump water heater, still half as much per year to operate. It's only just over $100.
So what's the shape of a heat pump water heater?
You know, I just knew you were going to ask me that, so I took some measurements. So the tallest one that I have here is about 6'3", 6'2" inches. So it's about my height, and it's about 25 inches in diameter. So very similar to what we see now already as a gas tanked water heater. Maybe a little taller, maybe just a little bigger. But other than that, you know, an unintended consequence of a heat pump water heater, it's got a we were talking refrigeration cycles, right?
Right.
So we know we're going to make it cold inside. It's got to reject the heat somewhere, right?
Right.
So we're
Right.
talking heating up the water. We're rejecting that heat inside. So it's going to reject the cold air. You put it in your hot garage, kind of cool down your garage.
Interesting. Wow. Tyler, that's very cool. So Tyler, cue up a brand new old fashioned electric tankless water heater. Now I got to look at a heat pump version. All right. That's my, that's the whole thing for my hot water heating in my house. It's installed downstairs and it's directly under my, the main bathroom in the house. It's great. Turn it on, boom, pretty much instant hot water. I don't have to wait as long by any means. But I did find that because it's now situated on one side of the house instead of the old gas heater that was in the middle of the house, it takes longer for the hot water to get to my kitchen. Okay, so I potentially am wasting more water, and I want, instant hot water in my kitchen. So I just recently bought one of these little jobbies, ladies and gentlemen, which is an inexpensive, under the sink, same brand, smart, EcoSmart point source electric water heater. And so it's gonna, take in the cold water and turn out hot water. And I talked to the factory, and what they said, I said, can you run these things in series? And he said, absolutely. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this from the hot water from the other heater into the cold and then out. And so this will give me the initial boost of the heat until that other water comes across. And then this heater will boost that other up. So I'll get instant hot water and it'll be more localized. And so this is going to fit underneath my sink, real simple installation. But I've got to put in a new 10 gauge dedicated line from my main panel, which I know how to do, but that would be an installation charge, right?
Indeed.
Yeah. Cool. Well,
and the
do you have any
water heaters do require their own dedicated circuit for that?
Right, right, exactly. So, any tips or last comments about this whole arena of going all electric or defracking your house?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can consider. I heard one of the fellows earlier mention LEED certified products and things like that. So those incorporate everything from roof shingles to engineered hardwood floorboards.
Okay.
Even the duct sealant that we use on your ducts to keep the air from leaking out, right? So these LEED certified things, you can have a really high performance home by just little by little, every project you do, trying to incorporate these things. Now, I don't always recommend half measures. Kind of all at once makes it the best for everybody, right? As far as comfort, energy, and making sure there's no missed anything through the cracks, right? Which is why home energy assessments are great for that. Something that we provide if anybody is interested.
Right on cue, because I was just going to ask you to summarize this section. There's lots of opportunities out there for defracking your house, and so I encourage all of you to take advantage of an energy audit. Now, how much is an energy audit from your company?
So it's $500 from our company, but it lets you know kind of prioritizing your biggest issues, what you can, based on your budget, what'll get you the biggest return on your investment also, right? And things like that, as well as helping the planet out. Mother Earth needs it.
Absolutely. So you could do that with a smoke bomb and a fan, right? I mean, just kind of pressurize your house.
No, not quite. It's a little more involved than that, but there's a lot of fans and gadgets that go into it, infrared, the whole nine. So
bring over Uncle Charlie with a cigar and just have him blow smoke around the door jams and stuff, right?
If only it were 1942 again,
Let us not. Cool. Well, thank you very much, Arlen. I encourage you folks to visit Arlen's company's website, which is buildingperformanceprofessionals.com, and I put it in the chat. So very cool. Let me shift gears here and take a look at our case study. Yes. Oh, sorry, Darren, please. Yeah.
Yeah. Before we move off of kind of the discussion on at least the electric resistance water heaters and the heat pump water heaters, I do want to mention for anyone who may actually invest in that in this year, next year, whenever. PG&E just got approval, and it's actually a program I was specifically working on, so I'm kind of proud of it. We just got approval to roll out an incentive program for controllable electric resistant and heat pump water heaters, where if you shift the usage to basically be off peak, kind of middle of the day is peak
Right.
time, when the grid is kind of strained, we'll pay an incentive to shift the kind of preheating of the water so that you're not using the electricity during the peak hours. It's kind of a cool
That's
little additional money that can come your way, for participating in that. So,
Well, I
check it out.
didn't. Oh, go ahead, Jim, please.
Darren,
Yes.
so Darren, you would aggregate all these water heaters all over the area and make a really big dent in the peak energy use.
Yeah, well, and we actually have a specific megawatt goal to do exactly that.
So number one, I was kind of miffed that I didn't get a rebate from anybody on my tankless water heater, because the only things I saw were tankful electric hot water heaters. And I don't want to ask you why, but can I retrofit my tankless water heater with one of those super duper control mechanisms?
Not for the program I'm talking about, because the whole point of the program is to basically you're storing electricity in the water heater. It becomes a storage device because you're not using. You're actually by preheating it on off hours. You're not using the electricity in the.
So you're heating the tank with electricity, but you are storing that water. Right. Okay, I get it. That makes sense. Thank you very much. Marielle or anybody from MCE have any comments before we kick over? I want to take a look at this AREN case study. Just hesitate here for a
just
second.
one comment.
Yeah, please.
Arlen did an awesome job. I just want to say that sounds fantastic. Really appreciate his expertise. MCE is helping to support contractors who are interested in heat pump water heaters by giving them directly a rebate to install heat pump water heaters. To get to the point that you brought up, Mark, of having them have the education and training around these new technologies. So Arlen and his company are already there, but MC is really working to inform our contractor base about these great new technologies. And I really appreciate Darren bringing up the control aspect as well, because these are all going to get us to the point where the costs are going to go down for our customers by moving the energy to the off-peak periods.
Well, thank you very much. It's interesting because I wanted to have this program primarily to answer my questions. This is a personal informing session. But what I feel like after listening to you guys is that the brand new things that I just installed are like a PC. I mean, it's already obsolete, I feel like my new tankless electric water heater is Windows 7 version, but it is great. I am significantly saving on gas, which is really the goal of this whole discussion. And on to the following up on the comment about LED lights. I mean, I can't imagine anybody still using any incandescent lights, but I've replaced all the light bulbs in my house.
Since you mentioned incandescent, can I make one more
please.
mention about a heat pump water heater? So one of the fun facts about the Rheem Pro Terra heat pump water heater uses
lights up.
It uses less electricity than a 100-watt incandescent light bulb.
Wow. Oh, wow. That's really
interesting,
impressive.
Right?
I got to talk to you. Oh, God. Do you guys take rebates on gas heaters and resell them for me? We don't want to go there. It's like selling a gas guzzler, right? Okay. So I replaced all the LEDs, and I figured out that I can leave every single light on in my house, and I'm using no more than 2 incandescent bulbs. And I've got lights, because LEDs are so cheap. I replaced a friend's house, 3-level house in Nevada. We've replaced 36 bulbs, cut our electricity use from 2,300 watts down to under 300 watts. Just with LED, cost you less than $200 to change all those bulbs. So let me shift gears here. Yes.
Bruce asked a good question. He said, we spend only about $120 a year on heating our home. It's really the environmental thing to do. Is it really the environmental thing to do to replace a furnace in good condition with a heat pump? I was thinking of doing it at the end of its life cycle.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. Yeah, please.
So if the question is to me, I try not to fix things that aren't broken, right? So the things that would benefit that, I think you said his name is Bruce. The things that would benefit him would be an energy audit, so that you could find the most leaky parts of your house, the things that are making that run more. So then it runs less and you save more, even more before replacing it, right?
So that's a very good question that was asked. And I think part of the decision is not only economic, but it's also environmental. And, I mean, yes, you're going to be scrapping a not yet obsolete heater, but, it's a point where we need to make this shift to electric. We need to reduce our use of gas very quickly. And I put this in the context of the phrase climate emergency. If it's an emergency, you make decisions in a different way. Okay. So, I'd encourage you, if you can afford it, to make that transition. Two more quick questions, which I thought were very good from the chat is, I asked this during by the way, when you and I were talking earlier, is why don't we see as many solar hot water heaters on people's roofs in California, in the Bay Area?
Well, they kind of like the geothermal heat pump. They just don't quite perform, I think, as designed. You just don't quite get the output from them that you're expecting, right? I mean, even like I'm talking up the heat pump water heater, how great it is, there's still things to consider about that, right? It has a first hour gallons rate usage, right?
Right.
So you want to make sure you're properly sizing these things up. And there's honestly, I don't think there's a lot of people who are even maybe familiar with solar water heaters.
Right.
I don't think I've ever seen one in California.
No.
Doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Oh, they're around. Well, you see them all over the place in foreign countries. China, they're all over the rooftops. Israel, it's everywhere. And they've got a similar kind of climate. The key, I think the message I'm hearing is, thinking about it, is if my electricity is coming from a renewable source, then it's actually more efficient and easier and convenient to go ahead that route rather than stick something up on your roof and take it from the sun and convert to heat and have that kind of fluctuation in temperature.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Mark.
I did.
Well, and Martin also had the point that if you had solar photovoltaic, if you have PV on your roof, and then the the heat pump water heater, that's a very efficient use of your roof space, more so than the solar water heater.
Indeed.
Right. Well, and Alan just made a comment in the chat about if you don't have solar, it boosts the cost of electricity, and so therefore you do have to consider you're decreasing the cost of your natural gas, you're increasing your cost of electricity, and factoring those economics if that's a primary concern. And that lends itself to then how much gas do you use and where in your house. So let's take a look at that Bayren case study. Let's go ahead, but Tyler, call it up on the screen. And Tina, are you in a position to comment on this, or Arlen?
No, I think Arlen was going to just really quickly mention because he's intimately.
So here's an example of a home. Arlen, why don't you walk through that and tell us what?
And I'm sorry, you can't see a lot of the details because it's
actually
very small,
not bad.
But, gives you the idea.
It's not bad.
So this is for Miss Morelli. Miss Maureen Morelli is what I have on my screen.
Mm-hmm.
And so for her, she dealt with, she had a central AC system, if I recall. She had like old gas-fired furnace, hot and cold spots in the house, not an even temperature. And so she dealt with several people before. I believe it was Curtis who helped her, and Lowell, who helped her rectify her issues. They did that with re-insulating. So what they did is they pulled out the old insulation. They air seal what we call the envelope, which is just like your living conditions or your living spaces, right? The attic would be outside of that, and the crawl space outside of the envelope, right? So we like to air seal, so there's no exchange of air between the dirty crawl space or the dirty attic. Re-insulate with a nice thick cushion. And then we hooked, let's see, I believe we gave her she had two systems, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, she actually had a mini split heat pump for the living room, which was one zone, and then a ducted mini split for the rest of the house, which is a little less efficient, but it's decreasing the electric load from the traditional heat pump style furnace. So and it does the job because it's such a high SEER rating. It gets the most energy out of the refrigerant.
Great. Well, if you want more information about your company, go to buildingperformanceprofessionals.com. Jim, do you want to give your website?
Yeah, it's just my last name, GUNSHINAN .com.
We
Cool.
have a slide. We have a slide for Jim and BPP at the end of the show too, Mark.
Great. Good. Excellent. Good. Well,
Can I ask Arlen a question?
Jim, please. Yes.
Please.
I've kind of been burning ass. Can you heat and cool like a 2,500 square foot house, say with a ducted mini split, and meet all the heating and cooling needs? Or do you need always to have a backup, like a backup gas heater or a backup electric heater?
So I think what you're explaining there is maybe what's known as a dual fuel system, which is a traditional air conditioning heat pump, which does heating and cooling, but it still has a gas-fired furnace to make up like large temperature discrepancies.
Yeah.
If you have a 25 square foot home, it's possible to do ducted mini splits, as long as you're taking all the appropriate building measures, as far as insulation, shell measures and stuff like that.
So you wouldn't need a backup.
You may need two of them, but
Okay.
but you wouldn't need a gas, no.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Great. Excellent information. Let me open it up very quickly. I know we're running past our typical 1 hour framework, but this is very good information. I'm not going to cut it short. I want everybody to stay with us because we want to show you induction cooking stoves. Okay, so hang in there. Let me open it up to the questions beyond the chat. Anybody want to raise their hand quickly or verbalize a question? I'll count to 5.
Yes, I do. I do.
Please, sure. Okay, KO.
How does it heat a house that doesn't have any heat?
So I'll take it that question is for me. So to be a little bit nerdy here with the physics and thermodynamics, everything above minus 459 degrees Fahrenheit is actually considered heat. And so when we're talking heat pump systems, a lot of them will work at -4 even, or 0 degrees. It just depends on what their rating is, what they're manufactured for, right? So in California, obviously not that extreme. And so they will work down to around 30, 35 degrees.
So I think
I want to go up. I don't want to go, I'm already down. I want to go above 33 degrees.
Right. I think what KO is saying is that her house doesn't have a heating system. And and I think what you're saying with the mini splits and stuff, you don't need a ducted house.
So how we can, okay, so this can take me just a minute to explain, right? So it's a law of thermodynamics that heat flows to cold, right? So what we are doing when we mess with the pressure and the temperature of the refrigerant, it's gonna come in really cold and all that heat is drawn to it, right? From outside. So if it's 60 degrees, say it's 60, 50, 40 degrees outside, but the refrigerant is coming in at 30 or 35 degrees, that 10 degrees of heat outside is drawn to the cold refrigerant and then pumped into your house, which makes for why the insulation matters, right? To keep that heat in there. Because when it is 30 degrees outside, it doesn't pump as much heat as when it's 90, right? So there is some limitations. They have backup heat strips that are electrically ran to kind of compensate for that dip in temperatures if you get below 32 or something like that.
So I think the message
where
is
does the refrigerant come from? And what is the chemical that is the refrigerant?
So the most common refrigerant today that's in use is refrigerant 410A. It's a really high pressure, but it doesn't have an ozone depletion. That's why it's used. So it's no longer interacts with our ozone, doesn't have a chlorine molecule, which interacts with the ozone, which is why it's kind of used. But I imagine it will be phased out at some point for something even better, right? We try not to rest on our laurels after all and try to make everything more efficient as time drags on.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is allowing CFCs anymore, chlorinated hydrocarbons in refrigerants. But it sounds like the answer to your, in terms of an old house, we've got a lot of different technologies people can look at, from point source to system wide. KO, go ahead and take advantage of Arlen's company and talk to them further, and maybe have an energy audit and see what types of systems that they can come up with for your space.
Well, because I
give me a
don't
call,
have
we can
air
talk
conditioning,
tomorrow.
so why would I have coolants?
Well, heating and cooling. Anyway, let's
Yeah, I'll check it out. Yeah,
yeah, check it out for sure.
because I'm really concerned of. I do not want to give up. I've got an electric range. I hate it.
Well,
I want
okay,
to cook on gas or a wood stove. Thank you.
Well, so hang on until we show
Yeah,
the
I
induction
wanna get
cooking,
to that.
because
I
it
wanna get to
isn't. It's the source of power is electricity, but it ain't electric stove. It's completely different. It's magnetic. It's magic. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, fundamentally, it's magic, just like these heat pumps. So let's. I want to thank our guest tonight, Mariella Herrick with MCE, and the folks, her team from MCE. I want to thank Jim Gunshinen, our commentary, and Arlen, our contractor representative. Thank you all. Darren from PG&E, thank you very much for coming in and providing your perspectives. I've learned a lot, and this is going to be a good show, I think, for those of people that missed it. So please encourage people to go to YouTube. I think it's very important in this time of a climate emergency to de-frack our houses. All right. So Tyler, let me turn it over to you quickly for our sustainability tip of the month. Please don't leave, folks.
Oh, well, I'm just going to hand it right back to you guys. I just want everyone to know we always do a tip of the month, but this month we're not going to just talk to you about a slide. We're actually going to do a little demo. And the actions that we always demonstrate on our tip of the month are found on the Cleaner Contra Costa Challenge, which is a really fun platform where you can track your household actions and your carbon footprint, save money, and get great resources. We'll hear a little more about that at the very end. The particular action that lines up with the induction cooktop is called Upgrade Your Oven/Stove. And there's resources on there for you to learn about all the different options. But we wanted to talk about induction in particular tonight because it's kind of a hot topic right now and very interesting and new technology. And both Mark and Tina have examples of it. So take it away.
Yep. Thanks. And I've been promoting it for a long time, so now you get to see it. So I'm going to get queued up. And in the meantime, Tina, why don't you take it from there?
Okay. Well, we recently did a home remodel. We had a maybe 48 kitchen. Things were falling through the drawers, so it was time. We did have Mason BPP do all of our electrical and insulation and installed our hood and all that good stuff. My husband wanted a gas stove, and I had done workshops and attended workshops and learned about the health disadvantages of gas, not to mention the climate disadvantages of gas and all that. So we discussed it for a long time, and he researched on the internet to try to find why we should not get an induction stove, why we should get a gas stove over an induction stove. And he was determined to convince me that why we should get a gas stove. He could not find one reason, not even cost. We got a Wolf induction cooktop. Tyler, you have a picture of it. And he looked at videos of comparisons of, using an induction versus a gas and same size pot and heating up water and how much faster it heated. It blends right into the countertop. One of the things that I like it a lot. That's a picture of it. Yeah, that's why I showed you that one. It's just like you hardly even notice it there. But one of the big issues that people need to know about is it really works best with cast iron or on the right hand side. I'm not sure. I think that's cast iron inside. But I
Looks
bought
like it's enamel on the outside.
Yeah, it's enamel on the outside, but it's cast iron. It has to be magnetic. So I think Mark said something about, Mark,
100% stainless steel, and we'll talk about that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's
so
got to be magnetic.
I can use my old all-clad. I still use my big stock pot and some of my old all-clad, which are aluminum core, so it's not magnetic. But what I do is I put it on a little disc that converts it, or that creates that magnetic induction connection, so that it will heat, and that heats up and it heats the pot. But I went out and bought at Ace Hardware these, and it was a really good deal. They were like on clearance and they were super cheap, and I thought they would work well because they said they would work with induction. And so it has this thing on the bottom that's magnetic, but the sides aren't, and it takes a long time for the water to heat up in these. So if anybody does get it, I suggest not getting something like this. Kind of the cheaper, you can get cheap ones, but don't get something like this. I would suggest taking a magnet with you to the store.
Yeah, you really do need 100% cast iron or stainless steel, and not the 3-clad stuff, which is stainless and then aluminum and then stainless. So let me take you to
you
to
can use it, but you just have to have a disc that sits on the top and creates that magnetic induction connection, and then you can put your like all-clad, for example, on top.
Right. Copper isn't magnetic. Copper doesn't work. Okay, so I'm moving now to my kitchen, and I'm hoping that is changing, because it's not changing on my phone here, right? Okay, so I'm walking in here.
No, we're seeing
Are
it.
you guys? Yeah, you're seeing me walk?
That's
Yep.
pretty, Mark. You did a remodel too.
Oh yeah, it turned out very well. Great. So let me share you. Actually, wow, I'm not seeing quite what I expected here. Anyway,
Good.
all right. So here's my induction 2-burner installation. It's from Gasland. Oops, just spilled some water here. Anyway, it's very simple to use. You've got the controls up front. You turn it on. You push one of the 2 burners. You hit 5, sets it on medium immediately, and that's all it is. Done. Okay, so I'll turn it off. Let's show you how this works. And in fact, I'm going to show you how it works with a piece of paper towel in between. Watch this. Okay, so I'm going to put it down. You can't do this on electric or a gas stove, right? You guys seeing this? All right, so I'm going to turn it on, kick it to 5, bing, up, 2, 3, bing. Okay, so now it's on full blast, and we're going to count this down. It's 8:34, so we're going to watch it boil. In the meantime, the cool things about these stoves is that they're only heating the pot. They're not heating anything around it. This is a magnetic technology, all right? So the magnets are heating the molecules in the pot where it's touching the magnetic coils underneath, radiating up, however it does that, so that the area around it is cold, and cold enough that I can literally keep this paper towel underneath it, all right? So it's gonna heat up here, technically. It's also got a timer, so I can also push the button, push the clock, kick this down to say 9 minutes, bingo. All right, it'll turn itself off in 9 minutes, so I can walk away. I'm not gonna burn up the kitchen. Okay, so this is installed. It's operating on a dedicated line to my main panel. It took 3 40-watt circuit breakers, but one 220 line. Matter of fact, let's take a look under here. Oh, just real simple. I don't know whether you guys can see that. Nothing special underneath, so it's very shallow. And it works great. I mean, for my purposes, it's got a smaller burner and then a bigger burner in back. Easy to clean. Okay, so while it's heating up here,
Mark, Melanie made a good point. It is great for little kids to put the hands up there. It's not hot.
Yeah, I mean, it's been cooking here. Matter of fact, you can start seeing.
Youth-friendly.
What's that?
Use it. Youth-friendly. My kids use it.
Yes, there you go. Well, I'm starting to get some bubbles here. We'll see. It should take maybe 3 minutes to heat about half a pot of water. All right, so those of you that don't have an opportunity to install something like this, they've got these portable ones. Let's take this and put it over here. And I'm going to move this over here. So this is my original induction burner from Duxtop. This one rocks. So does this one, but this one is great as a portable starter. It's about $100, which is cheap. Okay, so I'm going to take this. Notice a standard plug. I'm going to plug it into a standard AC circuit, and that's it. All right, so I can take this and I can, where's my pot? Here. Okay, here. I can put a pot on here. I turn it on. I turn it to menu. I turn it to boil. End of story. Okay, so I can kick the power up and down on a scale of 0 to 10, and it does its thing. Okay, it's got a little fan inside in this particular case, and that's it. So in this particular unit, I've got two ways of controlling the temperature. I can do it on a power setting, or I can literally do it on a temperature setting. Okay, so I can set it at 20-degree increments: 240, 260, 280. 360, 380, 400, it goes up to, I think, 420. Or I can put in power, and power actually over time works fine. You get to know how to use this. So, and by the way, look at this. Okay, so I got, how many minutes was that? About 3 minutes. Okay, so I got boiling water. Okay, real solid.
One thing I would point out about these, it's not as straightforward as gas. I mean, you see the gas, you see how high the gas is, and it's super straightforward. It is a little bit more to get to know how it works. I actually had to read the instructions the other night to find out why one of my burners wasn't getting as hot as I thought, and I wasn't doing it right. So now I know.
So there you go. Boils water. Now check that out. Okay, my hand is right next to it. The paper is not burning. The pot is hot, obviously. And I am now going to, if I say, oh, it's boiling now, I want it to simmer, I can cut down the temperature here, and look at, it's dropping right now, and it'll settle back down almost as instantly as gas, okay? And it'll pulse. It'll go through, it'll boil and then relax, and boil and relax to keep it at a reasonable temperature so it doesn't boil over, all right? So if I take this pot off, okay, the system knows that, oh my God, something's disconnected. It'll go into air mode and it'll shut itself off in a minute. But check that out, okay? It's hot from the pot, but not from the burner. And if something spilled over, I could take a sponge and literally right now wipe it off, and then in effect put my pan back on. It sees the pot, goes back to cooking. Okay, great system, absolutely great system. Now, somebody asked the question earlier during one of our rehearsals about heating a wok. Given the shape, it may not. You want to heat the bottom. You got to get a stainless steel wok, but you can't use aluminum wok. I don't know. I'm not a wok specialist per se, but anyway, that's that. And this one is beginning to heat up, and you can see the controls. It's got a timer, and both of these have a lock feature. I can lock this so that kids can't play with it. This one has a lock feature right here. I just push and hold for 5 seconds, and it'll unlock it or lock it. So that's induction cooking. So in my smaller kitchen, I can have this as a third burner in case I have company or want to cook something bigger. And I've got these on a day-to-day basis where I really only need 2 burners. Okay, so that's induction cooking.
Somebody asked if it simmers well. It does, like Mark said. If you have it on a super low temperature, it'll just go on and off at its lowest temperature. It just goes on and off as needed to keep it at that low temperature.
Yeah, so
it sounds like it's like a microwave where there really is only one setting, and the way you get low is by not cycling on as often. Is that accurate?
Pretty much, yes. That's my understanding, right? And so I do a lot of skillet cooking, and I've got a cast iron small skillet and a bigger skillet down here. I typically just literally turn it on, kick it on to 5. 5 seems to be great for just day-to-day cooking. I don't really need to mess with it a whole lot. Very simple. So you can see here's this water kind of staying warm. Okay. So
that's great. Okay, Mark, while you're resetting yourself back to your chair, right. I want to share real quick, just as we've been talking about this BayREN program, just make sure everybody understands. that this is a tremendous resource for you. We saw some folks in the comments talking about the Switches On website, which I believe is national. And if you put in a Bay Area zip code in there, you're going to see a lot of these BayREN rebates come up and others. But the BayREN program is Bay Area focused. If you use that website there, bayrenresidential.org. And not only is the website tremendously useful in hooking you up with all the different types of resources you have. There's something called an energy advisor that can help you with this. There's a contractor finder where you can locate a contractor, or the energy advisor can help you with that. But we also, at Sustainable Contra Costa, in partnership with BayREN, we put on workshops, which right now are in the form of these webinars, to give you all the details about all the rebates that you could get and other resources. The contractors come on, folks like Arlen and others, to get into the details of all the different options for homeowners. So it's a really great program, and it's all at bayrenresidential.org. So I just wanted to make sure you saw that resource.
By the way, I noticed the comment in the chat about not needing a rain hood. Right, my kitchen doesn't have a hood. As long as I don't set fire to something, but anyway, cool. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Tina. Let's have the closing credits. Appreciate everybody hanging in there for this whole episode. It's long, but I think it was great information.
That was
Thanks for having
really,
me.
Go
really
ahead, Tina.
great to have you all. Okay, the winter challenge is underway now through April. The seasonal campaign is part of the Cleaner Contra Costa Challenge. Join your neighbors, friends, and local businesses by logging your household actions through the Cleaner Contra Costa Challenge free web platform. Together, we have saved so far 204 tons of carbon dioxide already. Households and teams that earn points during this seasonal challenge are eligible for prizes. Everybody can get a free yard of mulch from Eco Mulch. We have gift cards available from Sloat Garden Center, Sideboard Neighborhood Kitchen, Bill's Ace Hardware, Diablo Foods, and others. So look for details. If you're a member of the Cleaner Contra Costa platform, we're having a February webinar that will help you make the most of the resources, have fun, and save money. And finally, the next episode of Sustainability Live on February 24th will get us thinking about spring gardening. Our guest from the Contra Costa Master Gardener program will share all the amazing resources they have to offer. And we will also take a look at the many aspects of community garden in our county. Find out all of this and more on our website at sustainablecocoa.org.
Yay,
Great.
thank you. And just a quick
Thank you very much, everyone.
contact information. Once again, for Arlen's company, Building Performance Professionals, and for Jim, his email and his website, and MCE and PG&E, you can find them. They're easy, but we thank our guests from there as well.
I cut my own hair. You can tell.
Yeah, that's true. I snagged that headshot before you got the COVID cut. And as far as us, we want to remind you that Sustainable Contra Costa is a nonprofit. And while it is free for you to watch this webinar and look at the video later, it is not free for us to produce it. So we always ask for your support. Some of you already did contribute when you registered. We thank you for that. But if you haven't done so, please consider making a donation there, sustainablecocoa.org/support. And you'll find us on Facebook and Instagram and our YouTube channel, where you should be able to see the video of tonight's program, I would say by the middle of the day tomorrow. If it's not there yet at that point, just check back. We will be airing it again. I mean, we'll be uploading it as soon as we can. So thank you so much to everybody.
Thank you, Tyler. You know, and by the way, you guys doubled my salary, right? From 0 to 0. I mean, you say it's not free. I gotta put in another invoice for 0.
Yes.
Thank you all. Thank you, Tina, Tyler, the whole team. Colleen, who's not here tonight, joining us, and a big thanks to Gotham, who helped us as our producer. Gotham.
Yeah, Tina has a closing credits.
Oh, okay, got it. Well, I want to personally thank him for this evening.
Yeah.
And before Tina's credits, I want to say, go deep green, and go solar
100%
clean.
renewable.
Either 100% renewable from any one of your vendors.
This has been Sustainability Live, a production of Sustainable Contra Costa. Our goals for this show are to provide you with useful and timely information about all aspects of sustainable living, guided by the One Planet Living principles, and to provide an online community for sharing information and learning together. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Central Sand, Mount Diablo Resource Recovery, Contra Costa Green Business Network, MCE, EcoMulch, Republic Services, Contra Costa Water District, Recycle Smart, Tri-Delta Transit, and the cities of Martinez, Walnut Creek, Antioch, and Pittsburgh. The full list of our sponsors is on our website. Thank you to tonight's crew, producer Gotham Sathison, director and host Mark Westwind, and our technical director Tyler Snordham Phelps. For more information about One Planet Living and all of our Sustainable Contra Costa's programs, visit our website at sustainablecocoa.org. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.